Hi everyone, and welcome along to the next episode of the name we haven't got yet, because every name's taken. Today with me I have a beautiful local young lady by the name of Lauren Woodward, who is a kinesiologist, sorry, and also involves neurotraining. I met Lauren, I saw her about 3 or 4 years ago, and she actually stood up at the Yelling Up Hall and gave a little bit of a talk there, and it was a very profound talk, and I knew straight away that, she was in that right field and way of thinking as a lot of us are today. So I don't know much about kinesiology. I think it's going to be a trouble saying this the rest of the time. But what does it actually entail?
Kinesiology started about at the turn of the century. You might go to the chiropractors and they might put your hand down your spine and they just basically challenging the muscle. And if it's a way, the way I use it and the way that I've been trained through the NEUROTRAINING, it's a tool to guide the direction of the session to bring the answers from your body directly to the subconscious. Because as soon as I touch your arm, our subconsciouses are talking. So I'm challenging your nervous system, your neurology, and your subconscious, and I'm using that muscle response to help guide that. There's two sorts of ways that it works. You've got to indicate a muscle or a direct muscle response. So say, for example, we're in a session and, I'm using this as kind of like the steering wheel to find out where we're going.
Yeah.
And I might need to change gears, and that might involve using a different muscle. And then you might have an area of life that is, affecting you, and you say, well, I want to work on my trust issues with social.
So they're not necessarily physical issues. That could be any sort of issue.
And then I challenge that and it doesn't show. But then I find the right context and I might find a muscle. Then I challenge that muscle, maybe one of the adrenal muscles, and it opens up the circuit.
Right.
And you're in. Because we're very amazing, incredible humans, and we have got compensations after compensations after compensations. And ways of dodging around.
Yeah, because the body is so connected. You don't realise it, do you? Because it's all subconscious, basically. We don't listen to it very often, do we?
No. Well, the dream is to have, I guess, that conscious mind, the interface where you can pull that information through, like that whole interbrain, left-right brain.
So the information actually comes to you?
Well, it comes to me, but it's only, I use the muscle checking as the tool to find out, okay, here is, and so what I'm studying at the moment is to be a functional neuropractitioner, and I'm starting to integrate this into my practice. Is like, here's this, let's say this is a part of the brain, and there's another part of the brain, and in a certain situation, that connection will stop. So it's about reconnecting and reminding, okay, let's get these speaking to each other again, because for whatever reason in life, something's happened and there might have been a threat response or the nervous system's peaked out, and you're just continually relooping and reliving that experience.
Yeah, wow.
One of the things that I really like about the kinesiology, it's just the tool to do what I do, is that you can clear huge things without consciously being aware of it. You don't necessarily have to go deep into the story to allow that to happen. And I've been using this modality myself in for 10 years, and it's helped me navigate through some really challenging times. And through my journey, I've been consistently learning and upskilling and,
Which makes you a better practitioner because it's your experience.
Yeah.
Already because you've lived it.
Yeah.
And I'm a firm believer in that. I think if you're out there with something that works and you can heal someone with, if you've experienced the person that's with you, or your client or patient, if they're with you, if you've experienced what they're going through, it makes a huge difference because they know
Yeah.
They actually know they're talking to someone who
Yeah.
has actually experienced it, and
Yeah.
and that helps so much more
Yeah.
than if you hadn't have.
Yeah.
You know, I find that
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah,
And it's allowing the resources as well for you to be able to hold yourself, because you can go and see every practitioner in the world, but at the end of the day you have to be able to walk yourself through that. And you know, we can avoid that, and to me it's made me stronger to be able to walk through the challenges of life,
yeah,
and in that have the resources to support me through that. Because you know, I think you would agree, you can't, it's not all like bubbles, it's really challenging.
no. I mean, even I say to people, because they say, you know, I'd love to be so awakened or experience enlightenment. I mean, there's you can't even explain. You can't explain enlightenment, because it's a feeling that you could never explain. The minute you explain it, you've labelled it, and it's the mind's told you what it is. It's not. It's a actual inner experience.
Yeah.
You know, and it's something that is can be so powerful for a lot of people. And I mean, I know a lot of people in the Southwest that I know of that will go from different healer to different healer to different healer to different healer to, you know, all over the place. And I think that's great.
Yeah, because it opens, it's like the doorway.
Because there's one that's going to be theirs, you know, it's that finding that what is that old saying, when the time's right, your teacher's there.
Yeah.
It's that thing, isn't it?
And you have to be ready. Like, I know personally, I've had scenarios and situations where I've been given the information, but I haven't been ready. My nervous system hasn't been strong enough.
No.
And it's, you know, it's also like bringing the frequency or the consciousness up to a point in the session that there's a reference point to go back to. Then you go out into the world and you navigate through that, because it's like a North Star.
So people have this dreamy view of being really happy and healthy and I'm all fixed, you know, sort of thing. But what I do say to them is I say, look, to get to a certain stage in your life where you see things pretty clearly and you know what's going on, you're not dumbed down by social media or anything like that. You're not reading those magazines that I used to read when I was a young person. Yeah. You know, like so much full of shit. You know, I mean, it's all there. But if you're not, to get to that sort of stage where all that stuff doesn't matter, because that's an important thing today in young people's lives. You know, is who they are. They're more worried about what's outside of themselves than what's inside. They're not even thinking about how they're feeling. You know, and so they. I say to them, look, to get to where I got to in this very moment right now, that wasn't easy.
Yeah.
I had a lot of ups and downs and challenges, just like you said.
Yeah.
But each one is so rewarding. It may be painful at the time, but it's rewarding when you start to realise why.
Yeah.
When you start to see yourself, you know, it's powerful.
Yeah, and it's creating the trust and the love within yourself to hold yourself.
Yes.
And to catch the nervous system before you go into the mind. And so this is something that I've been working on personally and really bringing into my practice, is helping train the nervous system, but more to the point, just getting that neurology and the brain working cohesively together so you can allow yourself to hold and not go into a story, because that will just keep you looping into this cycle. So it's like, okay, I'm feeling grief, but that's it, you know, and allow yourself to go, this is what I'm experiencing, but not going into the grief and loving, you know, witnessing it. It's like you've got a dinner table and then you've got anger you, joy you, pissed off you, raged you, and when they come and they stand up, is to just be like, oh, and I've spoken about this with clients, it's like, oh, hey babe, I try to make like a bit of playfulness of that. I see you anger, you know, I see you rage, I see you disappointment, I see you jealous, and allow it to be seen, because it's just coming up, it's just showing you. So whatever's happening in your reality is such a gift, but it's also really challenging.
Yeah.
And to have love and compassion for yourself.
Yeah.
And
understanding where it all comes from too, because a lot of it's subconscious. A lot of people don't know they're carrying all this anger or grief,
and just
until you mention it.
Yeah.
And they go, "How do you know that?" You know, but everyone has that, and we've all experienced that usually from a very young age. And it's the same grief, and it's the same anger, and it's the same fear. There is no. I said to someone yesterday, I said you could so easily, you know, like if say for instance you were a child and you know and you almost got run over, and the fear that you felt at that time, right, will be no different to the fear as you being on the roof and falling off a roof or on a plane parachuting. It'll still be that same feeling because we felt it once. So it's amazing because it's not the mind. You can think of something, but it's the feeling that drives it deeper, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's also important to know that sometimes your feelings aren't true, and that's that
correct.
Entanglement of being able to catch yourself in a situation when you're having a reaction to
a trigger.
something. I was having a conversation the other day with somebody, and I said to them, is it that you really don't like me, or do I trigger all the parts of you that you don't, all the parts of me, what does it say? All the parts of you that you don't like in me. But in that moment, I had this awareness, and I think this is when you really come from a different frequency, of a different place. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so grateful for what this has actually shown me.
Yeah.
You know,
beautiful. I like that.
Yeah, of just being like, okay, when I'm, you know, I feel like the integration happens at such a different level, because we talk about how we'll integrate this. We don't talk about really how we integrate our anger or how we integrate that.
Yeah.
It's almost like we will try and acknowledge it, but if you sit with it and allow it to integrate, I think in that conversation, when you allow your nervous system and your neurology to feel safer, you can take that moment and go, oh my gosh.
That's right. And that's the beautiful moment. That's the good moment.
That's the expansion.
And you can actually, when you get the oh my gosh, you can actually also feel angry.
Yeah.
Because you've come from where, like, how come I didn't realise this before?
Yeah.
How come? Why is it taking me so long?
It's just,
you know, it's bang, isn't it? But it's such a good feeling. It's undescribable.
Yeah, it is, because it's just like that. I guess that divine or that source point, it's just like you really feel like you are one in everything in that wholeness in that moment, because what you've seen is I am you and you are
mirror. We're like mirrors.
And when we speak, and we, you know, I'll talk about this all the time, it's like I'm just speaking to myself right now. You know, but it's like when you have that moment and you go, oh, and it was so profound, and to capture that moment. So it's just how we can get and support and love ourselves.
And that's probably humanity's biggest challenge, isn't it?
That's the one thing people talk about, saying, this is my belief, saving the world. I'm like, to me the best thing is to just love yourself,
to be the light,
be the best version of yourself, and then that creates this beautiful ripple effect out.
And that's spot on. I agree with you 100%. You know, they say they say that I liken it to I love cooking, and every now and then I make my own bread when I'm in the mood, of when we feel like eating sourdough. And you know how you can, or any bread really. I mean, if you throw like a kilo of flour, and then you may have a cup or two of water, right, with a little tiny bit of sugar, but the least ingredient in that is the yeast, right? But look what you make out of that little tiny bit of yeast, right? And I'm thinking, if everybody could be that little bit of yeast, you know, so what you just described is exactly that. You know, to grow into something it comes from you. It's your energy field. I mean, science will now say that we actually do have an aura. You know, that we do have an energy field. So I'm glad that science has come out with that now, but it's taken them many years where a lot of yogis were ridiculed because of that. Yeah, and we know that because you know when you go out feeling like yay,
Yeah.
and everybody is so friendly, even strangers talk to you for no reason, and you're thinking, hey, that's kind of weird, but I'm liking this.
Yeah.
It's because you're in that field.
Yeah.
You know, it's that frequency.
Vibration.
And then, you know, if you're really depressed, no one goes near you. If you're going out feeling pretty
I think
crappy.
it's that point when we have those, you know, is just to have that love and compassion and allow yourself to identify the, oh gosh, but not go into it. Do you know what I mean? It's like, okay, I'm just going to hold space
just the
for
presence.
myself.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because it is quite, you know, I think that it's quite pointy.
I guess if you go too deep into it, you're only delving into the past, which doesn't exist.
Yeah, exactly. Because one of the most beautiful things that I've learned working with Aranu, which is the Indigenous people out of Uluru, is that in their language, there's no word for future.
Yeah, so how did you, before you go ahead with that, how did you actually get to there? I mean,
that's a beautiful story. That really is when you fully trust in the unknown, and I feel like I played this game with the universe, and I fully witnessed my personality going into places out of not trusting myself, knowing that everything's going to be okay, but just really held space, expanded myself out, I guess, and held space for that. So it was during COVID, and we were back home with my parents in Victoria. I managed to just jump lockdowns, but I had 2 weeks in order to get back to WA. I need to have 2 weeks in a different state. I spent a lot of my 20s living in the Northern Territory, and so I really wanted to go back there, and something had been calling saying, Uluru, Uluru. And my son's dad's auntie lived out in the community. I'd never met her, but I was like, okay, so, you know, and I really wanted to take Finn out there, and it just felt right. And I was in that state of just, yes. And so I booked a flight, and it was so interesting. Even I got kicked off the Jetstar website, and when I went back in, the prices had dropped, which was really rare because COVID, everything kind of went up. But these prices came down. So I booked a flight from Uluru, or from Melbourne to Uluru, and I booked my return flight from Alice Springs. And it was a 5-hour drive between the two. And this was where I played this little game with the universe to trust. So I didn't know at that time, and so grateful to my son's dad for really just trusting me here, just letting me trip about with Finny. I didn't know how I was going to get from Uluru to Alice Springs. There was COVID, so there was no buses, and you couldn't hire a car.
Gee.
I'd posted on my friends were like posting on the Alice Springs Facebook page, and then I was like, oh, one of my mates was in a truck. I'm like, oh, maybe I'll get in a cattle truck and I'll go with Finn, and, you know, anyway. And it was really interesting, as I was saying, I was witnessing myself trying to organize, trying to control. Yeah. When I knew at my core that it would be fine. I didn't need to. So we flew in, Finn and I we stayed at the resort for a night, and then we went out to the community. And that's, I met my son's dad's auntie. She's an amazing, amazing woman. And then she was like, just pop down to the warehouse. I was like, okay. So I was just driving around, and then I met Clive, who was the CEO at the time, and he's like, oh, I'm going to Alice Springs tomorrow. I'll give you a lift.
Wow.
Bam. So, and it was just this most incredible night, or afternoon at Uluru, and it was 40 degrees, and there was rainbows, and then blue sky, and then thunderstorms.
Wow.
And so the next day, Finny and I made the trip with Clive into Alice Springs. But as we were driving, there was thunder and lightning all around us, and the drive was beautiful, but no rain above us.
Wow.
And then we stopped at a site, and Clive's like, go up this sand hill, and I remember being up the top, and I could hear all these ladies talking in Pitjantjatjara, and I turned around and there was nobody there.
Oh, that's powerful.
Yeah, and it was a very culturally significant place.
Yes.
It was just all this synchronicity anyway. So we got to Alice Springs, we drove across, the rivers were all coming up. it was just like
There's a lot of big adventure. How old was Finney at the time?
He was 3.
He was only 3 years
he was
old.
3.
And did he like the whole journey? He was good.
Yeah, he fully came out like that. The Northern Territory, especially Alice Springs, is like my.
You feel something there.
Oh my God, it's one of my. I just love it. It's just so expansive, and the ranges are beautiful, and it's just I don't know.
I've never been there.
I just can't. Yeah.
And so when you got to Uluru, what happened there then? So
well, Finny and I, we just went out to Uluru. We walked around. It was really hot. It was because this is.
Is there a little town there?
Oh, so it's an interesting place. So you've got Uluru, and then you've got Yalara, and Yalara is owned by. It's its own. It's owned, but the resort owns everything. So
who owns the resort?
It's a big story. Well, technically, I can't remember the name, but it's government owned.
I thought so.
Yeah, and then on the other side, that's where the community is, which is closed to the public. So you can't go there. Out there. No. Yeah. So we stayed there, and we went out, and we met Trace, and went to the waterhole, and we then played at the pool and.
So you got to live there, or you worked there?
Yeah. So then what happened was we got into Alice Springs, and then Clive rang me and said, "Would you like to come and work for Maraku?" And I said yes. And I'm again really grateful to my son's dad for allowing that space. And so Finny and I were living out there within 6 weeks.
And what was your job there? I mean, what were you doing?
Manage cultural tourism and events.
Oh, that would have been amazing. And that's quite busy. Like, there's a lot of cultural... Is there a lot?
So basically, for people that are coming out to Uluru that want to have an Indigenous, cultural, authentic experience.
Yeah, which most people would.
Yeah, that's what I sort of...
because there's not much happening here, is there, in the southwest?
No.
That's sort of missing.
I've had a chat to Billy a few times. That's something I'd love.
They had it there years ago. Apparently, they used to have dreaming.
Yeah.
I thought how powerful. I would have been there. I mean, it would have been good. It would have been great.
I feel very honoured and privileged, and it was just even the synchronicities of it. When we did fly back into Perth, that happened to be the closing ceremony of the Seven Sisters exhibition.
Yeah,
which
I
was
remember that.
Yeah, so we went. So I flew in, and then I met everyone, and that's when Renee, which is like, "You're coming back to Mutijulu," and Finn, and Ben came. We were all there. That's my son's dad, and we were at the closing ceremony where they did the Inma, which is traditional ceremony, and with all the artists. And then I went back up and spent 2 days just helping out, sort of volunteering. And then before I headed out to.
So tell me what it's like to actually. So you basically lived with.
Lived in the community.
In the community, was there many white people in the community?
Yeah,
there's quite a few.
Yeah. It was just a really humbling, beautiful experience.
Because they can be themselves. They're not being trained or taught to be different.
It's just
and I wonder what that would be like, because they'd be so earthy and they'd be so connected to the land compared to us.
It's all in everything. I don't really talk about it that much in depth in the details, because I feel I don't know.
It'd be a whole new energy experience, really.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I visualise.
Yeah.
I think if I was in the sitting there, I would definitely let go. I mean, you would just.
Yeah.
You wouldn't try and control anything.
Yeah.
But I think that the actual their energy would be amazing. It'd be very powerful.
Yeah.
Because they're more grounded.
Yeah. I've seen and experienced some incredible, amazing things, and I've been challenged in ways that has been so amazing for my personal growth. And I'm just really humbled and honoured to have created that. And I remember when I was writing, if I went back and had a look in my diary from 2020, I didn't know why I was writing. It was like I wanted, what was it, culture, heart, connection. It was just really interesting.
You wrote things down.
Yeah, and it was all, and I'm like,
and it all connected in the end.
Yeah, and I truly believe, like, I feel, it's it's a really unique place, and
What
there's
attracted
something-
you? What attracted you to kinesiology?
that was just one of those universal things. I have a tendency to just, when I know that I'm meant to do something, it'll happen like that. So even like what I'm integrating into my business now with Nick, it just happened like that.
Yeah.
So I do remember I wanted to study something other than massage. So when I was 20, in my mind, I have a background in sales and in the corporate world, but I remember being 20 and being like, okay, one day I'm going to have a baby and I'm going to want to create an income, and I don't want to do massage. It doesn't feel right. And my beautiful parents and a lot of people throughout my life are like, you should be, you know, before I even knew or understood.
Yeah,
They'd
okay.
say, you know, my dad, I remember my mum, I remember taking me to the natural therapies
Place
in Melbourne.
What a blessing that was, had parents like that.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Wow.
What, you know, when you have to do the stuff after high school and what you're interested
Yeah,
in.
yeah,
So we
yeah.
went to like a thing, and I think originally I was going to study acupuncture, and then I heard an ad for a photography college, and I ended up actually
Doing
just-
photography,
yeah.
side
And then,
tracking, yeah.
But
We
so
all
with the
do
yeah.
that, and that makes us gives us
Yeah.
that full experience
Yeah.
of living, doesn't it? Oh, I
Yeah.
did this and then I did that. I mean,
Yeah.
we do so many things,
Yeah.
and it's great because you become all those things,
Yeah.
you know.
It's interesting. But I
Yeah.
just remember thinking that. And then I remember being at a family Christmas and I was speaking to my Auntie Polly. And I remember her saying to me, you should do kinesiology. And I didn't
did you
think
know
of
what it
anything.
was?
No. And this is gets even better. And so then I knew that I had to make a decision, and my boyfriend at the time, we were like, we'll go to the snow for a day. So in my mind, I was like, okay, I'm going to go to the snow, and I'm going to leave, and I'm going to be signed up to study. And so I created this little Lauren thing where I had my wine and, you know, went and sat in the snow, had a day's spa treatment in the snow. And I was like, okay. And then it just happened. I made the phone call and it was done. I had never had kinesiology. I had no idea what kinesiology was. I didn't even really Google kinesiology. I just knew it felt right.
Wow.
And my first experience of kinesiology was when I was studying.
Right.
And I remember I got interviewed by Andrew Verity, who's the founder, and I kind of lied a little bit and pretended like I knew what it was about. And I just, that experience for me, that first experience, because everything that I might work on with someone, I have personally experienced myself. I've had to obviously do in training, but I also was putting my hand up to have that visceral experience.
Yeah.
And I used to be really afraid of the dark. Like, you know, even as an adult, petrified. I used to live in a cattle station in the middle of nowhere, and I would sleep with a gun. Like, I was just like, you know, really scared. And it was the first thing that showed, because he was demonstrating something, and to me, I just let out this mighty scream.
He knew.
Like through that, he was just working through stuff, and my nervous system, because I believe your nervous system isn't going to put you into a situation where you cannot hold yourself through that situation.
Yeah, no, yeah.
And I relived that experience, and this doesn't. Sometimes people won't relive things like
almost
this.
like a rebirth, isn't it?
Yeah, and I let out what I thought was this massive scream, but nobody else seemed to have heard it, and my whole like. And yeah, from then we weren't working on that. That's just what showed, and I was okay.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't get scared of the dark anymore. And I mean, when I mean
powerful, isn't it, really?
Yeah, when I mean scared of the dark, I mean like, you know, I would have severe anxiety. But yeah.
And so would you find with all your clients that you have now, or that you've had the last few years, what would be their main, what do you think is something that keeps popping up all the time? Is there anything particular sort of thing that, or fear or disease, or is there anything that's been popping up a lot more in the last, say, 3 to 4 years?
People knowing what they want, but unsure of how to get there.
Right.
In terms of, you know, taking the layers off, it's just it is a lot of the fear, but also it's so varied. My clients vary.
And what do you think
so
drives
much.
the fear, do you think? What do you think drives fear
Well,
in people?
what I believe, we're not taught or raised, maybe not necessarily raised, but the environment doesn't really cultivate that sense of trust within oneself to fully go there. You know, it's kind of taken out of us in a way.
Well,
you know,
no one trusts anybody today anyway.
Yeah, we come in enlightened, and I'm a really sensitive person. Like I really
pick up.
Whoa, and my experiences, my reactions to things are whoa, because I just naturally am born that way, which is a gift, but it also is a challenge. So I call it coming back to your you-ness. That does, you know.
And do you teach people that does it show you that?
In the sessions, it's so different because I'll pull stuff from anywhere, because I don't know, I have I guess a quite expansive mind, and quite a lot of my friends used to call me Limitless Lauren, in the sense that I try not to put myself into
The minute
and if
you
I
start
say
thinking,
that, and if I do that now, I'll be challenged by what I've just said, I find. Well. So it's just coming in to what that person needs on the day, whatever their highest priority is. And then the session allows itself to get to that point.
And I suppose having been doing this for the past 10 or so years, I mean, you must also get stronger. It must become stronger too.
Because in that, I've also had a child separated. You know, it's been huge. Like, it's been a big time in my life. But for people that experience just connecting them to themselves, to that part of themselves that has always been there.
But they'd be afraid to do that, wouldn't they? Because it's... But you're saying don't go into the story, just...
Yeah. And it's interesting, I find, like, even myself, when I'm working on people, like, it's really clear when we can run, you know, I'd be like, oh, I'm getting distracted by the story. Let's just do the...
And the story changes all the time, doesn't it? We tend to edit it. Which, you wonder why Joe Dispenza, for instance, would say that, and even Bruce Lipton, they'll turn around and say that 80% of your memories are not actually really true. You think, oh my gosh, which parts are not true, you know? And I believe that. Because it's how we feel at the time, isn't it? I mean, if you're depending on your mood or where you are at the time, you witness something, you and me could see the same thing and tell a completely different story, right?
Absolutely, 100%.
Yeah.
And what I've even noticed in the reality is, you might call it glitches in the matrix, but that actually happening, and even within myself, I'm really seeing, I guess, where I'm perceiving something or writing something and being sure of it, and then seeing it in a different way.
Yeah. That's beautiful, that.
Yeah, it's kind of confronting, and I think there is this, and I've seen this on the table before, where people have that great awareness, and it's like you kind of crack open a bit to yourself. And I found also with clients, there's a bit of a theme with people coming and just opening up the space for them to go out, and whatever that looks like, you know, is where they'll go on their journey. And, you know,
well, you've had an amazing journey. I mean, it's great.
Yeah.
It's really great. I'm loving this. This is so good.
I
could sit here for hours now and ask you so many questions because it's so good.
Yeah, thank you. It hasn't been easy at all. I've spent a lot of time, you know, relentlessly working on myself. And working on myself to be the most best co-parent I can be with my son's dad.
Yeah.
And I think I'm emotional like that for my son.
Yeah.
I realized instead of going, and I think there's this point that happens when you separate from someone and you have kids. And I saw that point of going down this path, the legal thing, and I pivoted and I just invested my money into myself and working through my stuff, and that has had the most amazing positive outcomes, because I could, you know, and I see this, it's like, you know, things are hard, like things are challenging, and sometimes things are not okay and things are okay, but it's how you then hold yourself through that scenario, and the work that you do on yourself really changes your whole environment, you know. And
yeah, but it's beautiful.
And it really, like, I am so grateful for the relationship that I have with my son's dad, and the fact that we can go on holidays together, and, you know, I know that I piss him off, and, you know, like, he pisses me off, but there's this foundation and this core, which is our beautiful son, and it comes back to that. And it's just come, you know, over almost 7 years.
And that's so important.
Yeah.
So important, because I've seen a lot of things with young kids.
Yeah.
And when parents are still warring after they split up, they're so damaging. I don't think they have any idea as to what that kid's going to be like when they get to their age.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's
because
so
there's
huge.
so much pain, so much grief.
Yeah.
And the kids, because they forget about the kids, they actually just, it's more a battle between two people. They forget it. No one's really saying, hey, how do you feel about this to the child?
You have to bring it back to the child.
Yeah, you have to bring it back to the child.
And that is really confronting, and it takes a lot of courage, and
Of course it does.
there's another word, I can't think of it, to really look at, is this a me thing? Like, what is...
is it me or... Yeah.
What is... And this is something I always do. I'm like, is this a me choice? And I would challenge my motivations for my choices around my decisions.
Yeah, beautiful.
And then I've got some incredibly amazing, honest, brilliant friends that held me accountable when I would try go into the story or be a victim, you know, which is really, really hard to hear, because no one likes to hear you need to, you know, this is a you thing, you know, or, you know, we're wanting the drama or the,
want to
but
be
it
the
doesn't
victim,
serve. It really doesn't serve at all.
No.
And I feel like that has broken me and put me back together a million times over.
Well, you can ask yourself that question every day.
Yeah.
Is this for me?
Yeah.
You know, is this just my thing and my way of thinking, or my, you know?
Yeah.
Or is there a greater plan, you know?
Yeah.
And that's I call that self-inquiry. I do that a lot. I do a lot of self-inquiry because I like self-inquiry, because it's if you question why you thought why you have this thought, and why you just said what you said, you know, that's powerful, because you're just so used to doing everything, like you said, looping, just habitual talk,
You just kind of witness. So sometimes I'll just sit back as if I'm here and witness my personality.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I like that.
And then just love it, because, you know, I'll be like, what? I know it's like also that closing that game that is like a game that you play with yourself, from your internal and external dialogue, to have it integrated into the essence of who you are. So I'm really clear on my internal dialogue, but my external, I'm like, what the hell, Lauren? Yeah. You've just, you know, but then in that moment, just allow that to be seen and witnessed and have compassion for it. But, you know, there's so many opportunities in life for you to catch yourself and to hold yourself that can have such an incredible, profound.
So you're still on this journey of discovery and research. You're very similar to myself, because I love researching, and I love anything to do with the mind, because the mind is our biggest. Our own minds are our biggest enemy. I think
it's just
from time
like,
to time.
I feel like sometimes I'm like, Control Alt Delete. That's what you want to do.
Yeah.
But it's like knowing that this is, you know, when you go into thought, it's kind of just a lie, because it's based on the past. So it's like getting the nervous system back to this clean slate. So when I was talking about earlier about catching your nervous system before you go into the story, you catch it and you allow yourself to release whatever it is, you know, or pull it into your heart and actually allow yourself to feel it and to see it.
Yeah.
And then you get to sit back and go, well, actually, what do I want? On this, you've created a clear slate where it's not coming from the past, whether it's this life, last life, you know, great grandpa Jack, you know, not from his stuff. What is it? How do I want to cultivate it in my life? Because we can also get addicted to the highs and the lows and the growth. And, you know, it's like you've got this carrot being dangled in front of you, like, I want to get to that point.
But there's no point.
Yeah, no.
There's no point at all.
Present and going back
So
to
you're studying neuro health at the moment, right?
Yeah.
So what does neuro health entail?
Well, so functional
Neuro
practitioner, I think it's called.
Yeah.
I'm very right brain, so like when people ask
That's
me
a good
questions,
thing.
I'm like, oh, it doesn't bother me because I'll just go in and do it. So it's just a really deep dive into the nervous system, but it's working on cranials, primitive reflexes, really the vagus nerve.
The vagus nerve is really important, the vagabond.
So there's a process that you go through as part of that, you know, diaphragm release, getting the nervous system to the space in the session where you're really
It's
in
balanced.
that healing space, then going in and then working on what comes up.
Yeah.
And I've had 2 sessions of this in Fremantle, and I have to be absolutely genuine when I say this. I've never had a session as a practitioner where I've dropped in the way I have. Normally I'm still wondering about
What's going on?
how this is working, but the technique in itself, and because Nick's got, you know, 15 years of experience in so many different areas and really has such a deep understanding and knowledge of the body and the brain and all the things, I just dropped in like that.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, incredible. And
so combining that with all the other,
because I've done the Reiki.
it's perfect, isn't it? Because the whole thing just marries one another, doesn't it?
I wanted to take my work to a different level, and I'd been sort of, you know, doing a bit of this and always adding more. Did meditation teacher practice? I over the years. Yeah. And Reiki and massage, and then more modules with the neuro training to enhance. But I was like, I just want something else that I feel like. And then I'd been following Nick on Instagram since 2020, and then at the start of this year.
Yeah, no, it's powerful, and so if people want to experience your field, and some won't.
Absolutely.
You know, I've never had that experience.
Yeah.
But I was curious because I know it's out there and I've heard it before.
Yeah.
You know, I just haven't said it enough.
I find it really subtle, but really powerful.
So if people want to book in with you, how do they actually do that?
Send me an email is probably the best way.
An email and
have
you got a website?
Yeah, Lauren at laurenmarie.com.au.
So Lauren Marie.
Lauren?
Yeah.
Lauren. What is it? Lauren Marie.
Yeah, and Marie spelled with a double E.
MAREE.com.au. Yeah.
And they can check you on that.
And I've got an Instagram as well.
Oh, you're right. Is that under the same name?
Inner Balance NTK.
I might have you on my Instagram.
Sure. And then I've just created a company as well, which is Wellness Western Australia.
Yeah, that's great.
Which is just at a very initial stage of registering it and the domain name and the face.
Well, it looks like you're going to be busy for the next 20 years.
Yeah. But that's the thing though. It's capturing that moment and being okay with sitting with, okay, I know that I've got this. Now's not the time, but there's going to be a time.
Yeah. And you can also meet Lauren at the Yelling Up Wellness Expo. Lauren's going to have a stall there.
I'm so excited. I'm really looking forward to it. And I'll be, when's that, the 27th, isn't it?
27th of October.
I would have been charged up too because I would have been at the Sydney Opera House for dance.
Oh yeah, you'll be really in a great mood by then.
Yeah.
So if you want to ask more questions, you can either shoot Lauren an email or come and see her personally at the Yelling Up Wellness Expo.
I'm really looking forward to it, and thank you so much for getting me on here.
No, it's great. It's so good to have you.
I haven't spoken like this, I think, since the Yelling Up Hall, because that really took me by surprise. And
Well,
that
I
beautiful
think you ought to
moment.
do more of it.
Oh, thank you.
You're really
Okay,
good.
you want me to talk? Reach out?
Yeah, reach out, that's the other thing, you can do that too.
Yeah.
All right, thanks heaps, Lauren.
Oh, this is mine. Okay, thank you.
Okay.